trains!
Around a month ago when I made a video about the Cartoon Network show Clarence and how hated it was when it originally aired, I saw a bunch of comments like, "What? Clarence was hated? No it wasn't, get out of here." So you know what? Let's take a look at a series that was properly hated, like despised when it initially came out, and people still don't look back on fondly nowadays. Uncle Grandpa.
You guys are right, the show does suck. I now officially hate Uncle Grandpa.
Uncle Grandpa is an episodic comedy revolving around a weird old man, having the title of being everyone in the world's uncle and grandpa, and must travel around the universe in his magical RV, helping kids with their problems, with the assistance of his friends. It received generally negative reviews and backlash from most of the cartoon community back when it came out, with many of the main complaints listing its nonsensical characters and annoying and random gross out humours for it being awful. Despite this, the show managed to last almost 4 years with a total of 5 seasons, so if it really was that bad of a show, how was it able to last so long? I know longevity doesn't equate to quality, but most long-running shows that I would consider bad usually had a good to decent beginning that excused it to continue. But if Uncle Grandpa was so hated from the start, how was it able to build up enough of a following to last as long as it did? Well, like usual, let's start at the beginning. Uncle Grandpa was initially pitched to Cartoon Network in 2006 by Pete Brangard, who was a former storyboard artist on Chowder and Adventure Time.
Well, Uncle G, did you find out the meaning of your life?
Yeah, some bald guy drew me when he was bored.
Despite being pitched in 2006, the pilot for the series was only produced in 2008 and shown in 2009 as part of the Cartoon Institute. Before getting to turn Uncle Grandpa into a full-fledged series, Pete instead got to create a series starring characters that appeared in the pilot, called Secret Mountain Fort Awesome, a show about a group of monsters unleashing weird and crazy stunts on the public.
Why does getting pizza have to be the most hardest thing in the world? Yeah!
It was immediately panned and only lasted 26 episodes before being cancelled. So after a few tweaks, and even a redesign of the titular character, done by the man, the myth, the alleged paedophile John Crickfalushi, Uncle Grandpa was picked up and aired its first episode years later on September 2nd, 2013. Like I mentioned before, the story of Uncle Grandpa revolves around him meeting a different kid every day, helping them with their problem, then leaving their lives forever.
How long must the Emperor wait for his dinner sandwich?
But more often than not, the series isn't afraid to stray away from that formula and do something else. From as soon as the second episode of the series, it subverts your expectations by starting with Uncle Grandpa helping a kid, only to walk away and leave him to have his own adventure for the rest of the episode.
I gotta run back to the RV, Caleb. I'll be right back.
Okay, but hurry.
Wizard battle!
These types of stories are still fun though, as they usually take a simple cliche plot and push it to its absolute extreme. Like the first episode is about a kid being too fat to fit his shirt over his head, and by the end of the episode he realizes it's okay to be fat. By fighting the wolves, I guess. I know these nonsensical stories don't appeal to a lot of people, but for me at least I think this is the perfect show to just turn your mind off and enjoy the ride to see where it takes you. I really like this idea for an episodic comedy. It's a great way to create new characters for Uncle Grandpa to play off. It was just a little disappointing at how quickly the show started to forget about this job, with a lot of episodes focusing on random shenanigans between Uncle Grandpa and his friends. Speaking of his friends, Uncle Grandpa has a variety of creative... Uncle Grandpa has a variety of well-designed... Uncle Grandpa has a variety of... characters. First we've got Mr. Gus, who kinda fills in the role of being the Squidward of the show, except he's a lot more willing to join in on the dumb adventures. He's usually used as the straight man of the group and is more often than not the one to get the business. Maybe it's just me, but I often find myself liking these characters the most in these kinds of shows. I don't know, maybe that just says more about me than anything. Next we have Pizza Steve, who acts as the cool kid archetype, who shreds on skateboards and wears hip, rad sunglasses. I know people find him to be the most annoying out of all the characters due to his cocky attitude and acting like he's better than everyone else. And normally I'd be right there with you, but I don't really mind how they handled it here. Most of the time when they display the more arrogant parts of his personality, it's followed up by his ego being completely shattered by the other characters.
I miss her gentle kitty licks on my face.
And I miss her gentle kitty licks on my feet.
Then there's Uncle Grandpa's belly bag, who is a character for some reason. That's all I have to say, he doesn't really do much. After that we have giant realistic flying tiger. I swear to god these characters make less and less sense as we go on. She doesn't talk and again doesn't really do much because of it. The most interesting and distinct thing about her is obviously her design, and I think you can tell why. It's literally just manipulated PNGs of a tiger.
I can't stop thinking about all the good times we had.
So only half of the supporting cast really contribute anything to the show. If anything, I wish they would have made another main character, or even Mr. Gus, more of a straight man to the wackiness surrounding them. More of the humor in these random comedies is from having a character that's grounded in reality, and acts like the viewer. You know, it's funny to see how an average Joe would handle his crazy crew of characters. And I get that the kids were supposed to fill this role, but it creates a problem when half the episodes don't even feature them. But now we've got the main man himself, Uncle Grandpa.
You failed because you let hot dog person get eaten by birds. Don't do that.
I brought it up in my Cat in the Hat video, but Uncle Grandpa just might be one of those powerful beings in all of fiction. Even the Wikipedia page lists him as a magical shape-shifting humanoid, and honestly, it's pretty accurate. He even managed to get featured in the highest level of prestige. A Watch Mojo top 10 list. I don't usually like these perfect characters who can do anything they want because it sort of makes any tension or stakes disappear knowing they can just get themselves out of any situation without any trouble. But it works for Uncle Grandpa because he's so completely unhinged that instead of using his powers to get out of danger, he instead uses them to get into danger most of the time, and acts completely unaware of the events he creates even being unnatural. And most of the time will only ever use them for spectacle. Like, I love how he never acknowledges anything weird about what he's doing. Like, if he were not hell-bent on helping kids, he could quite literally become an all-powerful god who enslaves all of humanity to do his bidding. But he doesn't, so moving on. The worst part of these characters and what so many people judge the show on might be their designs and the show's overall art style. The pilot for Uncle Grandpa was actually animated in Flash, and it portrays the world Uncle Grandpa lives in being a lot less colourful and more saturated. The residents also seemed completely sick of his antics, which again, I think the show could use more of these guys.
Good morning!
Uncle Grandpa.
But the final show's animation is great. The characters will squash and stretch all over the place and are so expressive. The backgrounds also look really interesting. In the first couple episodes they looked a little... yeah, but as it went on they got very detailed and packed with jokes, especially Uncle Grandpa's RV, which has like an infinite amount of rooms with no rhyme or reason. Working on the show looks like it would have been a lot of fun. An interesting thing to note is that halfway through the series the art style got a complete overhaul. The RV changed to be a lot more random and wild, and while it looks nice it doesn't really blend well with the original characters placed over it. They even changed the intro to the show from a series of
Good morning.
to a funny random catchphrase.
There's a lot of people who owe me money.
Well, I mean, they can't all be a hit. I don't really know why these decisions were made. The original style worked well enough, and if anything, I think the new style gets way too out of hand at times. With entire episodes featuring the characters off-model, and I can't tell if it's intentional or not. I see a lot of complaints that the show is too random, and while it does focus a lot on the random humor, that's not necessarily a bad thing.
Through here, we have our writer's room.
Are you saying a bunch of diaper-wearing babies write all the words I say?
Yeah.
They usually know when the joke has gone on for long enough, and it definitely helps with each episode's short runtime, with the main plot usually finishing in around 8 or so minutes, with the rest of the time being filled up with a random skit or a reoccurring show. And I don't care what you have to say, New Experiences with Very Nice and Hot Dog Person is obviously the best one.
That was quite delicious.
A lot of people call this a gross out show, but like Clarence, I don't really see that complaint. Again, because a show having gross out doesn't automatically make it bad, but also because I can't really recall much gross out in Uncle Grandpa that didn't come from the character designs. It's more of a surrealist show than gross out. Saying all this, unlike Clarence, I can't really say I'm surprised the series was so hated. It was also released at a time when these random comedies were going out of style, so I'd say it's just a case of it coming out at the wrong time. It would have fit right at home with other series from when it was conceived in 2006. Which is a shame to me because there's always room for more dumb comedy shows. Not everything needs to be serious and serialized. And clearly kids liked Uncle Grandpa, it's the only reason I could see it running as long as it did. And for me at least, you know, not a kid, I think Uncle Grandpa is a pretty good show with fun, if not too wacky characters, and takes cliche comedy plots and goes in a completely different and off-the-wall direction with it. Like one episode can start with the gang needing to get a ball off a roof for a talking dog, then they spin the world upside down, get stuck in a plain bathroom, then have to retrieve the dog from a black hole. You never know where it's gonna go. It's just a show that you can turn on for a bit and watch a couple episodes here and there.
Why don't you just do what I did to escape prison and hop the fence?
Again, that is if you like dumb comedies, it's definitely not for everyone. I doubt we'll ever see a revival for this show though. Not because nobody wants it, but because I'm pretty sure it ended with all the characters dying. Well, and because nobody wants it. This show did manage to do something though that I think we can all agree on. It had the best ever episode of Steven Universe. I'm joking, of course.
The award for Best Steven Universe episode goes to... I can't believe it! Uncle Grandpa!
Mostly.